Memory and identity are burdens from the past, preventing us from living freely in the present. You believe your identity is an asset. It is not. It is accumulated history. Look closely. When someone asks, "Who are you?" What do you offer? A name, a profession, a nationality, a success, a failure, a heartbreak, a childhood, a collection of memories. In other words, you offer yesterday. Identity is the past presenting itself as the present. And because identity is built from memory, it carries all the weight of memory. What was done to you, what you achieved, what you lost, what others think of you, what you think of yourself. This weight is what he calls a burden. Imagine walking through a beautiful forest. Instead of seeing the trees, hearing the birds, and feeling the breeze, you are carrying 10 suitcases. One suitcase says, "I was rejected." Another says, "I was successful." Another says, "I am smart." Another says, "I am not good enough." The forest is the present moment. The suitcases are identity. The forest was never the problem. The carrying was. Most people never meet life directly. They meet life through memory. A person speaks to them and they respond through old hurts. An opportunity appears and they respond through old failures. A relationship begins and they respond through old heartbreaks. The past is continuously interpreting the present. That is not freedom. Freedom is not the absence of memory. Freedom is the absence of psychological dependence upon memory. A free person can remember yesterday, but he does not live from yesterday. He does not introduce himself through yesterday. He does not experience today through yesterday. He remembers, but he is not made of remembrance. The essence of what I am pointing to is memory is a record. Identity is the belief that the record is you. The burden begins the moment you mistake the record for yourself. And when that burden falls away, life is encountered fresh, without the dust of yesterday coating everything you see. So listen, your memory is not the problem. Your attachment to memory is the problem. The moment memory becomes me, suffering begins. A memory is simply a record, but the mind takes the record and says, "This happened to me. This is who I am. This is my story. This is why I cannot. This is why I deserve." And now memory has become identity. Imagine carrying a backpack. A memory is like putting an item in the backpack. Identity is deciding that you are the backpack. Now every humiliation, every victory, every heartbreak, every success, every insult must be carried everywhere you go. This is what I mean by burden. Not because the past happened, but because the past is being dragged into the present. A free human being can remember, but he is not psychologically made of memory. He does not wake up and say, "I am the man who was rejected. I am the man who succeeded. I am the man who failed." Those are stories, and stories are yesterday's newspapers. Useful yesterday, worthless today. So, in my view, memory is raw record. Memory plus identification is self. Self is psychological burden. Burden is inability to meet life freshly. So, the deepest insight is this: the self is largely a collection of remembered experiences that have been mistaken for who you are. The moment memory is seen as memory, not me, the backpack becomes much lighter. You spend your entire life carrying a museum of yesterday. Every memory, every success, every wound, every betrayal, every compliment, every humiliation is carefully preserved and labeled, "This is me." And then you wonder why life feels heavy. The burden is not the past. The burden is carrying the past. The burden is introducing yourself through yesterday's experiences. The burden is allowing old stories to stand between you and this moment. A child can laugh at a stranger, cry for 5 minutes, and then run off chasing a butterfly. Nothing sticks. An adult remembers an insult from 15 years ago and still calls it my life. One is free. The other is carrying psychological luggage. The deepest tragedy is that most people never actually meet life. They meet memory, they meet interpretation, they meet identity, they meet the story of themselves, and that story stands between them and reality. The moment you see that memory is merely a record and identity is merely an attachment to that record, something begins to loosen. Not because the past disappears, but because it no longer owns you. You can remember yesterday without living in yesterday. You can learn from the past without becoming the past. You can carry the wisdom and leave the weight. And perhaps that is freedom. to walk into today empty handed without dragging 1,000 psychological newspapers from yesterday, meeting life as it is rather than through the story of who you think you are.